Hello and welcome to the March of the Machine Green Limited Draft Set Review. That's what's going on here today. I am here to review the cards, including this lovely card you can see here on the screen, which we will be talking about later. But before I review the cards, it's probably a good idea to tell you how I review the cards. This is sort of a quick little overview. Let me hide my camera so you can actually see it for a second here. I don't really have a better place to put the camera, because as you'll see in a moment. But yeah, so these are sort of the tiers I use to grade cards. Is 1 through 5, 1 being the best, 5 being the worst. And the rest of them are in the middle. I used to use 4 tiers, and now I use 5, because I didn't feel like I could express myself enough in 4 tiers. I felt restrained, you know? So now I feel less restrained. I feel good. I feel better about myself and having more freedom to talk about cards. Speaking of talking about cards, we begin with Ancient Imperator. 5 red for a 6/6 with trample and ward 2. It has Convoke. And it enters the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters on it for each creature that convoked it. So the thing about this card is it's very large. There are diminishing returns once your creature becomes large enough, right? Like, once this gets to a 10/10, does it really need to be bigger? No, not really. It doesn't really need to be any bigger. But it being bigger would be nice. Like, I would like it to be larger. You can probably cast this for 5. Like, you can probably cast this on 5. Like, basically, this is like a 5-mana 10/10 trample ward 2. Like, does that, and you like take the turn off. That seems pretty insane to me. Like, maybe this is just tier 1. Like, honestly, the more I think about it, but I think again, it is a card that doesn't really impact the board. The turn it comes down, it does cause you to like tap your own stuff down, and sort of leave yourself a little defenseless, especially if it gets removed. Which can happen. There are some big removal spells in the set, and you do need to have creatures to convoke it, or else it is basically unplayable. But all that being said, I think those things are likely enough to happen in terms of like the upside, that I think this card's pretty good. I think it's solid. It's a good top end card. Next, Arachnid Adaptation. Single green mana for an instant. Untapped target creature gets +2/+2 and gains reach until end of turn. It's a very efficient combat trick. 1 mana +2/+2 tends to sort of be the standard these days, and it's pretty good. Like, it's solid. Reach is decent. You are definitely supposed to use this on blocks more often than you feel like you're supposed to use it on blocks, because you're like, what if I get blown out? Like, your opponent, like, you're probably not going to get blown out most of the time. Like, most of the time you're going to be the one doing the blowing out of the opponent, right? And that's the issue there, right? That's the concern. But yeah, I think it's a solid combat trick. You kind of know when you want it. Next, Atrax's Fall. 1 and a green for sorcery. Destroy target artifact, battle, enchantment, or creature with flying. So this is interesting, right? So when you destroy a battle, you don't get the battle, right? So if you destroy your opponent's battle, like you say you play a battle on your opponent, and then you destroy it with this, you don't get the thing. You have to remove its counters to get the thing. You can't destroy it, because if you destroy it, it just goes to your graveyard. So you're actually going to be destroying your opponent's battles as a sorcery. Now, I don't think you're ever actually going to be doing that, but maybe you will. Maybe there's a world where you do. I think you're going to be destroying creatures or than flying artifacts or enchantments. And then, like, we're reaching the point, like this card, we've seen cards like it before that are 3 mana. And they destroy artifacts or enchantments, and then they aren't good, and they're just never playable. And then it's like, well, now we're at 2 mana, and it's a sorcery speed. And it's like, maybe we're there. Are we there? I don't know if we're there to this being playable. Like, I'm not sure. I'm gonna start. Like, I don't think I want to start with it in the main deck. My prediction is that it will end up being a main deckable card, but I will not. Like, the funny thing about these, like my set reviews, is like I don't even listen to my own takes. I'm kind of like, I'm gonna just like play the cards. But like my prediction is that eventually I'll get to the point where I'm like, actually I'm gonna play this card. But for now, I'm like, I'm not actually gonna play this card for real. Like, I'm gonna say it's 2 or 3, but I'm actually just never gonna put it in my deck because I think it's bad. But like, but I'm like, I think future me is gonna look back past me and be like, all right, you're supposed to play it. But until I reach the future, we can only live in the moment, and I'm thinking this card's mediocre. Next, Blighted Burgeoning. 2 and a green for an enchantment, enchant land. When it enters the battlefield, you incubate 2, and when enchanted land is tapped for mana, its control adds an additional 1 mana of any color. So it's fixing, and it's ramp. And it makes a guy for... Well, it doesn't make a guy. It makes the thing that makes a guy for 2 mana. So it's basically like a 5 mana 2/2 kind of. But you get some ramp out of it. You get some fixing out of it. I actually, like, if you want fixing, I think this is actually not the worst way to go about it. You are taking turn 3 off, but on turn 4, you can play a 3-drop and make a 2/2. And that's probably catching you up most of the time. So I don't mind it. I don't hate it. Like, it's not complete. Like, again, you do have concerns about taking turn 3 off, but I think this of the cards that is like just pure fixing, this actually might do something. It may find its place if the format is a slower format and is not fast. I think it's going to be kind of fast, but next, Chomping Kavu, Chomp. 3 and a green for a 3/3 with backup 1. And this creature can't be blocked with creatures with power 2 or less. So it basically can't get double blocked. But yeah, backup is really, really good. So this card I think is going to be good as a result of that. Just any card that says backup on it is just a good card. So that's kind of my take. That's my really hot take, is that cards that say backup on them are good. I think Wizards has realized, like, you can see that Wizards realizes that backup's good. Like, they're aware that backup is good. They made it worse than it could have been. Like, some of these cards are like, it's a little understated for like Modern Limited, and you're like, that just means the backup is just insane. It is insane. So I like this card decently. Next, Converter Beast. 3 and a green for an 0/1. When it enters the battlefield, incubate 5. So this is a weird card, man. I don't know. I put it in tier 4. It may actually end up being like a really like this card. The ceiling on this card is, it's like the green's best common, right? Like, this could just be green's best common. Like, really could be. Like, if the format turns out to be like an incubate format, this card just ends up being insane because you just get like a 5. Because it's like a 6, so it's 6 mana for a 5/5, basically, right? You have this 0/1 that maybe you can bounce and like sacrifice, maybe like you get something out of that. I don't think you're really getting anything out of it. But on turn 5, you're like, okay, let's say I have 5 mana, which sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. I'm paying 2 mana to get a 5/5 with haste. That's great, but I just spent my turn 4 making an 0/1, so I just got hit in the face for 8. So now I have this 5/5 haste that can't really attack because my opponent just attack. Like, it has its like, I have concerns. And you just have to spend the 2 mana, so then you can't play like as big of a thing, but like you probably didn't want to play as big of a thing. Like, you basically need to cash this in immediately to recover your tempo. I don't know. I'm starting low on this, but I certainly see that it has potential. Like, I can see the potential in this card. Like, if you can transforming it immediately is not even that good because it doesn't have haste when you do that. Like, there's all kinds of weird shenanigans going on with this. Next, Copper Host Crusher. 6 green for an 8/8 trample hexproof. It's very large and is pretty much a win condition. Like, you kind of can't really kill this ever once it hits the battlefield. So you better be able to not die to it immediately. Because if you try to block this, your opponent's going to go like, all right, well, I have 1 combat trick and you lose. And it's like, dang, really thought I was going to get them by blocking their 8/8 trample hexproof. You're probably never going to be able to remove this once it hits the battlefield. So good luck. It's just the only thing holding it back is its casting cost. It's just huge. Next, 1 on a green, Cosmic Hunger. Instant. Target creature you control deals damage to its power. To everything. It deals damage to anything, except for players. Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's just a good card. I don't know. These are solid. It's a solid bite spell. It might even be tier 2, to be honest. These probably should be. I probably should put it in tier 2. Like, it's got it tended to be in tier 2, tier 3, tier 2, somewhere in that border. Next, Crystal Carapace. 3 and a green for an enchantment. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3 and has a ward 2, and you can cycle it for 2. Not interested. I'm not interested in this card. There's a lot of instant speed interaction in this format. Like, there's lots and lots of good instant speed interaction, and this card just completely loses to any of that. And cycling, like, doesn't, like, I don't think you want to be cycling. Like, I just don't think that you want to do it. I just have I have concerns about the ability to have cycling actually function properly. Just don't think it's going to be something you're super desirable. I don't think you're going to be able to take time off. I think you're just going to have to go. So next, Deeproot Wayfinder. 1 green for a 2/3. When it deals combat damage to a player or battle, surveil 1, and then you may return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So you want to put lands in your yard, and then you get to ramp yourself. Which if you ever activate the ability on this, great. Otherwise, it's just like a 2-mana 2/3, and 2-mana 2/3s are pretty good. So, yep, that's my take on this card. Doomscar Warrior. 2 green for a 4/3 with backup 1 and trample. When this creature deals combat damage to a player or battle, look at the top, that many cards from the top of your library. Reveal a creature card or a land card from among them, put it in your hand, put the rest on the bottom. Okay, I don't know why I took this out. You know what? You know why. So I put this in tier 2. The question is, should I have... Because I think there was a time when I read like backup, and then I read another card with backup, and because the text, the oracle text changes whether or not the creature has more abilities. Like if the creature... It gives it all the abilities, but when it only has one ability, it says it only gives the following ability. So I thought I read that, and I was like, oh, that's how battle works? No, it works. It gives all the abilities. So... I still think this card is very good. Like, it's a very solid card. I actually think this is tier 1. I meant to put it in tier 1, and then I removed it because I was like, oh, that's not. I thought it only gave trample. That's not how it works. Now it does have to hit whatever, but like you're probably getting through with this card. You're probably getting through with this backup trample guy, and then it's gonna you reveal one. You probably are only going to get to reveal one card, but your opponent wants to block too. So I think this is just tier 1. I've been too stingy here. Next, Fertilid's Favor. 3 and a green instant. Target player searches the library for a basic land card, puts it on to the battlefield set. Why is this target? I don't know. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target artifact or creature. Instant speed ramp is weird. We don't actually see it very often. That is one thing I didn't notice about this card the first time I read it, is that it was an instant, because I'm so used to these cards just being bad sorceries. But this being an instant is definitely an upgrade, because this kind of does this card do enough to get there? Because you can think about it like, oh, it's a combat trick. You get +2/+2 on your creature at instant speed, then you get to ramp. That's something. Is it good? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm still starting it low because these effects tend to be very bad, and if this one's good, then great, happy for it. Next, Glistening Dawn. Why did I not put this in tier 1 either? I just hate green cards apparently. 2 green for a sorcery. Incubate X twice, where X is the number of lands you control. So yeah, you basically just make 2 4/4s at bare minimum, and you probably are gonna make something bigger than that. What you really want to do is play this on 6, and then make a 6/6, and then also just have a second 6/6 that you're gonna get. This card's just great. I don't know why I put this in tier 2. This is just a busted card. This card's really strong. I don't know what I'm doing. Next, Iridescent Blade Master. 1 and a green for a 2/2. It has a activated ability, 3 and a green. It gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So generally not the most these type of cards tend to not be very good. But in this set where you're trying to attack battles, the threat of activation, normally when you attack your opponent for 2 life, it doesn't actually matter that this dealt 2 damage. But when you attack a battle for 2, that's usually about half of its life points. So that actually matters a lot more, because the thing that you're getting when it flips is probably worth getting. So it is interesting. That is an interesting thing about the card, is that it does play well with battle. This is a card that I'm on the lookout for. I'm like, I have my suspicions that it might be good, but we can't confirm the suspicions until we get to the set. Next, Kami of Whispered Hopes. 2 and a green for a 1/1. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a permanent you control, that many +1/+1 counters +1 are put on instead. You can tap it to add X mana to any one color where X is this thing's power. So it's a ramp creature. These tend to be very bad for 3 mana, but it can get out of it. If on turn 4 you have a thing that gives backup to this creature, it becomes a 3/3, and then you can probably cast another spell because this now has 3 power, and so it can tap for 3 mana, and so you can probably cast another spell, and then if that is a play pattern that happens more than 50% of the time, this card's like ridiculous because then it just gets really out of hand and can ramp and just win you the game. If it turns out that your opponent's like, all right, I'll just remove it, like every time. Like this thing needs to be removed instantly. But it's so small that it's easy to remove it. It should be theoretically fairly easy to remove it. And even if you don't remove it, there's times where your opponent doesn't have a +1/+1 counter on it immediately, and then it's just kind of whatever. It's fine. Like it's still fine. Like it will probably get one at some point, but you can't let this sit around. You really can't. You got to remove it. So I think I've put it in the cop out tier, the tier 3 cop out. Like it's maybe a tier 2 card. I've bounced all over the place with this card. Originally I was like, oh, it's terrible. It's 3 mana 1/1. And I'm like, stats do matter. Stats matter. Like you do just get attacked. But then I'm like, oh, if you ever have just any one +1/+1 counter on this, that just is like really strong. Like it just becomes like it just is huge instantly. So that's the joke. Next, Overgrown Pest. 2 and a green for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a land or double face card from one of them, put it into your hand, and you put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Yep, Contagious Vorak loses a whole 1/1 worth of stats, and it's still a decent card. It's not a tier 1 card anymore. Vorak was a tier 1 card. This is a tier 2 card, obviously. The stats are pretty significant, but the fact that you can get battles into the double face cards are good. They're solid. So, solid card. Next, Ozolith, the Shattered Spire. 1 and a green for an artifact. If one or more +1/+1 counters we put on an artifact or creature you control, that many +1 are put on it instead. And you can pay 1 and a green and tap it and put a +1/+1 counter on target artifact or creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. And you can also cycle this for some reason. I don't really know why. You are never going to want to do this. There's literally not a single game. Like, there's no game state where you're going to want to cycle this unless you're so badly losing that you're like, well, I need to find the Wrath in my deck. But, like, the only thing in my deck that saves me is a Wrath. But also, like, because this card, even, like, in the late game, you're going to want to play it and be like, oh, okay, great. Now I can, and in the early game, you're going to want to play this on turn 2. Because then every single time you put a +1/+1, like every backup thing you do is just insane. So just this card like is a really strong build around card. Next, Placid Rottentail. Single green mana for a 1/1 vigilance, and you can pay 2 and a green and exile it from your graveyard to put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature, and you activate only as a sorcery. I'm not super thrilled about the backside of this card, and the front side is not something I want either. So I'm completely out on it. It could be tier 4. Like tier 5 is probably a bit harsh. Tier 4 is probably fine, but I just like wanted to put something in tier 5 because I'm a hater. I'm a hater. Mostly. Is why. Yeah, you can if you're milling yourself, but like green doesn't really want to do that. And then there's just some cards that are weird in this set. Like there's these weird like pseudo like half cycles in this set where I'm like, why is this here? And this is one of the cards that sort of falls into that category. Next is Portent Tracker. 1 and a green for a 1/1. You can tap it and tap target land, or you can tap it and choose target battle if an opponent protects it with a defense counter from it. I guess they're called defense counters. And otherwise, you put a defense counter on it if it's under your protection, and you activate only as a sorcery. Man, like I don't know, like. This is another card that I went on an absolute journey with. Like, I just was all over the place. I started and I was like, man, oh my god, these cards always overperform people's expectations, like the 1/1 from Brothers War. And then I'm like, but this is like 2 mana, and 2 mana is like a lot more. It's so much more mana. Think about the amount of more mana it is. But then I'm like, but it interacts with battles, and like that's good, and like I like that it can do that, but I don't know if that's like it's so slow. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's so slow that I'm putting it in tier 4. That's where I'm putting it. That's where I've landed on this. I stand by this. Many of my ratings I completely ignore and then say something else when I'm actually doing the video. This is not one such case. I think this is going to be bad. Ravenous Sailback. 4 and a green for a 3/4 dinosaur. When it enters the battlefield, you can have it gain haste until end of turn, which is never going to happen, or you can destroy target artifact or enchantment. If you're ever gaining haste on this card, it's like a fail. You've admitted defeat, or you're winning the game. Either of those options is fine. Because a 5 mana 3/4 haste is not good. It's just not a good card. So it simply is bad. A 5 mana 3/4 that destroys an artifact or enchantment is probably decent. So you kind of want to be doing that every single time. Otherwise the card's not good. And there's tons of incubate tokens running around, so it's actually feasible that this will destroy something every game. I think it's probably going to have a target, so I think you're probably going to play it. But it's still not going to be that great. It's going to be fine. It'll have its moments. You'll be like, oh, my opponent flipped it. My opponent's like, oh, I flipped my battle, and then you just cast this, and it's just like, oh, no, dude, because a lot of the battles flip into enchantments. So this would just be absolutely brutal for that. Next, Sandstalker Moloch. 1 green for a 4/2 with flash. When it enters the battlefield, if an opponent casts a blue or black spell this turn, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from one of them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So this is the best of the color hosers, I think. There might be a better one somewhere else, and I'm forgetting about it. It's possible, I believe. I believe that I'm possible to be wrong. I don't know, just like by itself, like as a base rate, this card's fine, right? Like 1 green 4/2 flash. That's fine. And if your opponent casts a blue or black spell, you're like, oh, I did it, I did the thing. I did it. I get to draw a card now. And then it's insane and it's busted. So like, I think you're just gonna main deck this and it's gonna be acceptable, and then sometimes your opponent's gonna rage because they had the gall of playing a blue or black spell in their deck. Notably in pods, this actually becomes a better card because it's more likely that your opponents are going to be playing blue or black spells because one of the colors you're playing is green, so be advised. Next, Seed of Hope. Single green mana for an instant. You mill 2 cards and you may put a permanent card from among the milled cards into your hand. You gain 2 life. I don't know, man. Like, I don't understand why this card is in this set. This just feels so out of place to me. Obviously it would be way too good if you could return anything. But, like, there's no mill theme. Like, there isn't. I know that they're saying that there's these mill themes, but there just isn't mill themes. Like, trust me, there just isn't. It's just not happening. So I don't know. I have a lot of questions about this card. Now, the gaining 2 life. Now, see, the thing about this card, and I'm like, it piques my interest. It makes me look at the card and say, maybe I should reevaluate this. It does gain 2 life, and I'm like, it's instant speed, gain 2 life, weird. I'm sure there's a deck for this card. Like, I'm sure there's a deck that wants this card and is happy to play it. I don't think it's where you want to be. Next, Serpent Blade Assailant. 2 and a green for a 2/1 backup 1 Death Touch. This is a backup card I'm not especially fond of because, like, what are we doing, right? Like, giving something +1/+1. Like, this is basically just as close to, all right, how good is just getting a +1/+1 counter on something? Because Death Touch, like, whatever. It's fine. There are moments in which it is good. But generally, you want your Death Touch on your smaller things because that way your opponent is trading up with a bigger thing. And if you put a +1/+1 counter on it, it's kind of like, well, I already have Death Touch, so, like, is this counter, like, improving my blocks at all? Well, not really. Like, you really care more about the counter than the Death Touch. I don't know. I just don't like a 3 mana. Like, think again. If you think about the base rate of this card, 3 mana, 3/2 Death Touch, completely unplayable. Backup, it's playable, right? Like, so, like, maybe this is just tier 3. It is synergy in, like, the green and white deck. You're probably gonna play this in green and white, and you're just gonna play anything with backup in green and white. You're just gonna play anything that says backup on it because you just want counters that bad. And this is a situation where if you want counters that bad, you definitely want to play this. Speaking of wanting counters that bad, this looks like a Renaissance painting. 2 green for a sorcery, Storm the Seed Core. Distribute 4+1/+1 counters among up to 4 target creatures you control. Creatures you control gain vigilance and trample until end of turn. So, I don't know. This card is interesting to me in the sense that I'm kind of like, maybe. Normally it'd be like, no. Like normally I'd be like, this type of card always bad, never good. But I'm still trying to figure out what's going on in this painting. I can't really quite figure it out. I'm just like, I'm mesmerized by it. I don't. Like, it looks like an optical illusion, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's all messed up. Like, I don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, usually these cards aren't very good. This one, like, it actually could just be an absolute truck because, like, you're getting 4/4s worth of stats. You're giving vigilance to everything, and you get trampled as well. Which makes like you. What's kind of like you go 2-drop, 3-drop of this. It's pretty decent, right? Like, but the lack of flexibility is really concerning. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm holding out hope for it to be good, but I'm not starting up there. Streetwise Negotiator, 1 and a green for an 0/2 with backup 1. Creature assigns damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Weirdo ability. Broker's broke, though. If this card says brokers on it, it's busted. It's just true. We all know this to be true. And therefore, we assume that it's very good. It is a good card, obviously. Like 2 mana. Like if you just play this on turn 2, it's a 2 mana 3/3. Like what? Like I don't know. Like that seems really good to me. You know, I'll put a 2 mana 3/3 in my deck. I don't know why. Like they really did just print a 2 mana 3/3. Like that's one of those things where you're like, wait, is that what happened here? And the answer is yes, that is what happened here. So a 2 mana 3/3 is great. That's kind of all you need to know about it. It also has backup on it. Backup is also great. This might actually end up being a tier 1 card. This card's like really good. It really kind of fits with everything on the format. Yeah, interesting. Tandem Takedown. 1 green for an instant. Up to 2 target creatures you control. Each get +1/+0 until end of turn, and they each deal damage equal to their power to another target creature, planeswalker, or battle. I like this card. I think this card's solid. I don't know. The concerns with this card are obvious. 3 mana, very concerning. Double green, very concerning. Positives about this card: +1/+0 to 2 creatures, good. Instant speed, also good. So it kind of is like it's settling on tier 3 for me, as a result of the concerns and the positives. It's sort of like balancing each other out. And you don't have to target 2 target creatures. You can do 1 target creature if you really want to, and like remove stuff. Like, it doesn't get fizzled by your opponent removing 1 creature, which is nice. But it kind of still does because I guess if you have 2 guys that are big enough to remove it, it doesn't get fizzled that way. So it does have some sort of protection, I guess. But I don't know. This has really high upside and has really low downside, basically. So and that's that. I don't know. It's a removal spell, so it's fine. Tangled Skyline. 4 and a green for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 5 life and incubate 5. And for actions you control, have reach. So this makes a huge guy and gains you 5 life. Like I'm all in on this card. This is another card. A lot of green cards I just went on absolute journeys with me trying to figure out how good they were. This is another example where I started out and I was like, awful, cards bad, unplayable. And then I was like, gain 5 is so many life. The other ones of these don't gain 5. I was like, oh man. And then I just get like next turn, I just get to make a 5/5 with haste for 2, and then it has reach. It has reach forever. Like it just has reach forever for me. Yeah. So I'm pretty all in on this card. I think this card's good. Now, because again, you're trying. What are you trying? The comparables don't matter, right? As Darren Ferris once said, the comparables don't matter. But when we compare to Ravenous Lindworm, we see that this is a worse card than that, probably. But it does give reach. Reach is good and limited. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean that's what we like. We like that reach is good and limited. And we also like that this card is gaining 5 life. Like 5 life is not 6. Like it's not Ravenous. Again, we're not getting Ravenous Living Room. Okay, it's not not. But it does make a 5/5 with haste on the next turn. Okay, for 2 mana, which is good. That's good. It's a good spell. I promise it's good. And there's going to be a lot of incubate tokens running around. So that's my verdict on this card. All right, next Timberland Ancient. 4 green for a 6/5 with reach, trample, and forest cycling. For those of you forest cyclers in the world, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, whatever. Like this card, we just had it. Wait, you know what? Let's see if I can find. You know what? This is I'm taking a tangent. Here it is. Nope. I'm doing this. This is related. I promise. I actually have my props. I have the props. Here it is. It's the Yavimaya worm. I don't actually know. Oh no, it's a disaster. Here it is. Here's the Yavimaya worm. Here it is. Hi. Can you see it? Here's my friend. The Timberland Ancient is making the Yavimaya worm very sad. Okay. Because the Yavimaya worm is a 6 mana 6/4. It's very sad when it sees this card. Okay. Anyways, on how good is this card actually? I don't even think it's that good. Like genuinely. So yeah, I mean you can cycle it. That's great. Like we all love the idea of cycling, like in theory, but in practice we kind of think about, is the format fast? And again, that's sort of my thesis, is that the format's fast, and so you don't actually want to cycle these cards. But this, of the cyclers, like this, like let's do a power ranking. I've rated all 5 of the cyclers. I think the white one is the best. The which one's the second best? The black one, I think. Yeah, the black one's the second best in my opinion. This would be the third. Then the red is probably the fourth, and then blue is fifth. I think that's my power ranking of the cyclers. So yeah, I just don't think this one's that good. It's fine, like it's whatever. It's probably not going to kill you to play it, but it's not great. Next, Tribute to the World Tree. 3 green mana for an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. If its power is 3 or greater, otherwise put 2+1/+1 counters on it. So this is a card that I think in most decks is going to be unplayable because it's a 3 mana enchantment that doesn't do anything, and also is extremely difficult to cast. The thing about this card, if you're mono green, you should play this card, and this card is very strong. I don't think this is a good enough reason to be mono green without like it being open enough. It's really tough to be mono-colored and limited without an artifact-based set. Like, you could be mono-colored in Bro because there was artifacts that were playable. But in this set, there's just not artifacts that are playable, so there's just not enough overlap. Like, being mono-colored is so hard. Especially, like, there's just so much multicolor focus in this set. I think it's going to be really tough to get this card to work. If you can cast it on turn 3 reliably, it is a very strong card and has a very strong effect on the game and is definitely worth playing. I don't think that's possible, really. So I'm putting it in tier 5. Next, Verdant Earth. Instant, 1 in a green. Target creature or land you control becomes a 4/4 elemental creature with haste in addition to its other types. Until end of turn, it must be blocked this turn of Fable. So, I mean, like, no, I'm just not. I just don't. These type of effects generally aren't very good. You don't get to draw a card, so that's bad. It having to be blocked, like your opponent, like this turning a land into a creature is not good because, I mean, it's fine, right? Like I guess you're removing, but no, this is just a no for me. This is a no, boss. Like this is like all right. This type of card is usually bad. It's an instant, but like it doesn't really need to be. Like the card doesn't work well with itself. It's got all these weird contradictory text pieces in it where it's like, oh, it must be blocked this turn table, so I have to cast it as a sorcery. It wants to attack, so it can turn a land into a thing, so it wants to be a sorcery. But it's an instant, so it's like you'd think that would be more utility, but actually it's like less utility because it just doesn't even capitalize. And you never get everything out of this card. You can't ever get all of the stuff out of this card, and that's why I don't like it, basically. Next, War Historian. 2 and a green for a 3/3 with reach. It has indestructible as long as it attacked a battle this turn. It's totally serviceable 3-drop. Nothing special about it. The reach is nice. The attacking a battle indestructible is nice. It basically gets to attack battles for free. That's good. It makes your opponent not want to block because they can't trade. So this is very good at attacking battles. So if you want to flip battles, this guy's good. This guy's a good guy to have on your team. Next, Wary Thespian. 1 and a green for a 3/1. When it enters the battlefield or dies, you surveil 1. So it's a 2-drop that surveils 1 twice. Not bad. I'm cautiously have my eye on this because we have seen green 3/1s be good in the past, and we have also seen them be bad in the past. Very bad, in fact. And so usually they fall somewhere in the middle of it's good, but I don't know. I don't think this is very strong. But at least it doesn't have Toxic 2 for no reason. I guess it's kind of the joke. Next, Wildwood Escort. 4 and a green for a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you return target creature or battle card from your graveyard to your hand. This should probably be in tier 3. It's fine. This is a fine card. But again, this is just you don't need a 5-mana 3/3 draw card. You just don't need it. It's not necessary. Every card in this set is giving you card advantage implicitly by being a battle or being a transform card. There's so many ways to get card advantage already baked into these cards that just pure the cards are like this that are oh, I'm gonna get card advantage. You just don't need it. You already have it, right? You shouldn't need this card to be oh, I'm going over the top. Are you going over the top? I don't think you're going over the top, to be honest with you. I think you're just kind of hanging out. So I think this card is going to be overrated. I do think that this card is going to be overrated. It's going to be serviceable. I don't think it's going to be bad or anything. It's going to be a lot like we just had this in Innistrad. You had a 5-mana 3/3 that allowed you to get something back from your graveyard, and it wasn't very good. And I don't think this card is going to be any better than that card. So next, Wrenn and Realmbreaker. 1 green for a 4 loyalty planeswalker with lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. You can +1 up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental with vigilance, hexproof, and haste until your next turn. It's still a land. It's not indestructible, be advised. -2, you mill 3 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the milled cards into your hand, and -7, you get an emblem with. You may play lands and cast permanent spells from your graveyard, which will never happen. So, yeah, this seems fine to me. It fixes your mana, and it also makes 3/3s every turn, and you can get really the thing about this planeswalker is that it's 3 mana for 4 loyalty, and can make guys that attack every turn, and again they have vigilance, so they can get in. 3/3 is big enough that, especially at this stage of the game, now playing it on turn 3, and then you probably you kind of want it minus on turn 3 because making your lands are tapped and then whatever. I don't know. That's why it's not tier 1. It's tier 2. I learned my lesson with don't put planeswalkers. Just don't put every planeswalker in tier 1. That's what I learned. I was just don't always just put every planeswalker in tier 1 if they don't do anything. This one does stuff, so it can go into tier 2. But it's not super absurd and limited. Although if you want fixing, it's great. Invasion of Ikoria. X green for a 6 loyalty battle. When it enters the battlefield, search your library and or graveyard for a non-human creature card with mana value X or less and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle. So you're paying 2 extra mana to get a creature card of your choice, which is bad. Then it flips into Zillothria, Apex of Ikoria, which is an 8/8 with reach, and for each human creature you control, you may have that creature assign combat damage although it weren't blocked. So it's I don't know. It's just not good. It's just not a good card. These type of effects are always bad. People always overrate them. They're not good and limited. You just don't have good enough cards. It's just not a thing that you have. So it's yeah. Next, Invasion of Ixalan. 1 and a green for a 4 defense counter. That's the right word. That's the right technical term. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from one of them and put it into your hand. You put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And then he transforms into Belligerent Regisaur, a name that I'm actually saying because I like the way it sounds. With just a 4/3 with trample, and when you cast a spell, it gains indestructible until end of turn. So this is just, again, this is kind of like a lot of value for 2 mana. Like, you're getting a lot if you can transform it reliably, which you should be able to. Now, again, like, do you want to cast this on 2? Not really. You kind of want to cast it on 4 or 5 so you can actually attack it. Because flipping this is pretty good. Like, you basically get something that is going to be indestructible. It's basically just a 4/3 indestructible on your turn, which is good. And it's trample, so you can attack pretty often. Like, you're gonna get in. Like, this card is gonna do stuff. It's gonna do some work, I think. I don't now. Again, like the reason this is in tier 3 and not higher is that the timing restrictions concern me. Right? I'm concerned. Like, it's gonna take a little bit of time for this to get where you want to go, but it's a lot of value. Like, it's a lot of value, and it's good, and whatever. So. It's kind of my final take on it. Next, Invasion of Muraganda. 4 and a green for a 6 defense counter battle. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, then that creature fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Transforms into Primordial Plasm, which is a 4/4 at the beginning of combat on your turn. Another target creature gets +2/+2 and loses all abilities until end of turn. Weird backside of the card. Kind of strange. The front side is okay. There's a 5 mana fight spell, but it's 6. 6 is a lot of defense counters. It's going to be hard to flip. Like, even when you play this on 5, it's going to be hard to just be like, all right, now I get to flip it. And there's also fighting, right? So, like, the +1/+1 counter is great, and fighting a treasure creature you don't control is great, but it is 5 mana. Like, you have to keep in mind, it's a sorcery speed, 5 mana fight spell. Like, there's a +1/+1 counter, which is very good. And you can't attack. Like, I guess the question is, like, how often, like, what percentage of the time are you going to be able to just attack this down to, like, 2 loyalty when you cast it? And the answer is probably about 50% of the time. Like, 10% of the time you just flip it immediately. 50% of the time you get it down, you get to at least attack it down to, like, a more reasonable amount of loyalty. The question is, do you want to do that? And the answer is probably yes. I mean, this 4/4 like makes your stuff bigger. It makes it just huge. So I don't know. I like it, but again, I have concerns about its slowness. Right? That's what I have concerns with all the battles for. But this is another one. Invasion of Chandalar. 3 green for a 4 loyalty battle, 4 defense counter battle. When it enters the battlefield, return up to 3 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand, and it transforms into Leyline Surge. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield, which you will never do, because even if you did it, it wouldn't matter, because you could just cast them, because you're not going to have that many. Like, this is not happening. This is not a limited card. It's basically 3 mana, like, oh, maybe I get to draw. This is just terrible. This card is just awful. Like, it's 3 mana, like, maybe I get to draw a card. Like, oh, maybe. And then maybe I get to put some free stuff onto the... Like, how are you ever flipping this? I don't know. I don't know how you're ever flipping it. I don't know how it's... I don't even think it's... I don't even think it's right to flip it. I think you're supposed to just leave it there and never flip it. Because the backside just doesn't matter. You should literally... I think, actually, like, the play pattern... The way to get the most out of this card is to just never attack it. I think even if you have a free... Like, well, my opponent... I have a 4/4 on the board, and my opponent has nothing, and I cast this, I'm still not... Like, I guess in that case, you could attack it. That would be the only... Like, if your opponent literally just has nothing on the battlefield and you can kill this, like, okay, fine. Then you can get, like, 1 free thing, and it's like, okay, maybe we got there. I don't know, I'm out. Invasion of Zendikar, 3 and a green for a 3 loyalty battle. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tab, and then shuffle. So it just puts them on the battlefield tab, which is just sicko ramp. And then it transforms into Awakened Skyclave, which is a 4/4 with Vigilance and Haste. And as long as it's on the battlefield, it's a land in addition to its other types, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Yeah, I mean, this card is very strong because it's just like we're just ramping here. Like, I know that it's pure ramp. It's 4 mana for pure ramp, but it's only got 3 defense counters. That's so low. 3 defense counters is low enough that you can basically just be like, all right, point my red removal spell at it, and now I got a 4/4. Not really something you want to do, but you did ramp yourself to 6. Like, ramping to 6, like, it is, and again, you're going to be, like, there's so many cases where you're going to be able to just be like, all right, well, I have an attack on turn 4. Like, on the play, these battles, like, these turn 4 specifically battles, these 4 mana battles are the ones I'm looking at where I'm like, that's where you want to play them. And like any battle that's 4 mana, I'm like, all right, that's on my list. That's on my radar of battles I want. That's kind of the turn you want to play it. And I'm like, okay, so on turn 4, I play this, and then I attack my 3-drop into it. My 3-drop could probably flip this battle. My opponent like has to chump. That's fantastic, right? That's fantastic news. And if they don't, I just get to flip this into it. It's insane. It's just insane. I think it's just an insane card. Next, Bonded Herd Beast. I don't know why. I mean, I put this in tier 5. Don't listen to me. It's 4 and a green from a 4/5. You can pay 5 mana, 4 and a red Phyrexian to transform it, and activate only the sorcery, of course, and transforms into a 7/5 menace. Like this isn't like tier. This is tier 4. It's like playable, but actually no, it's not. It's basically a 5 mana 4/5. Like that's all it is, man. That's all it is. Like what if like it becomes larger, but whatever, dude. I don't know. I'm just not sure that that this does this. I just don't care about having a 5 mana 4/5 in my deck, really. Next, Knotfold Hermit. 3 and a green for a 4/4, which you can pay 5 and a blue to transform, for blue for Phyrexian, obviously. Transform into a 5/5, and whenever it attacks, up to one other target creature has base power up to this 5/5 until end of turn. So this just turns into like 2 attacking 5/5s, which is just huge on turn 5. Like that's just enormous. Like your opponent's like, oh no, man. But it's just really tough. Like this is just a solid base rate, and you can also just transform it into an absolute truck, and then just completely a problem for your opponent. Next, Herbology Instructor. 1 and a green for a 1/3. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3. You can pay 6 and a black Phyrexian to transform it into a 3/3, and when it transforms, target creature gets -0/-X, which is weird, until the end of turn, where X is this thing's power. I don't know why it doesn't get -X/-X. I don't. I simply just don't know why it doesn't. But there must be some reason why. I don't know. I've never seen -0/-X before. I'm sure it exists, but I've never seen it. So this transforms into a removal spell, basically. A 3-mana removal spell for 6 mana and 2 life. And also can attack. So I don't know, just a good value card, right? You're gaining 3 life, so like you don't actually have to pay as much. Like I like some things about it. Next, Pelucranos Reborn. Green for a 4/5 with reach, and you can pay 6 and a white Phyrexian to transform it. Transforms into a 6/6 with reach and lifelink, which is very good, obviously. And when it dies, or another non-token Hydra that you control dies, which you will never have, you create a 3/3 Hydra with the same text as this one, basically. Yeah, I mean, it's just really good. The thing about this card is you have to cast it. Again, let's just say this is 5 mana. Like, it's like, oh, well, I only had to pay 5 mana for my Pelucranos. Okay, whatever, fine. Then you can flip it, and it flips into something. Like, the thing about this card is you want to transform it. So it doesn't really matter when you cast the front side, because you just want to cast the back side. So you can just kind of be like, you don't have to cast this on 3. If you cast it on 3, fantastic, great, you win the game. But if you don't cast it on 3, that's still fine. Like, you don't need to cast it on 3 for this to be good. If you cast it for 5, it's a 4/5 reach, not the end of the world. The next turn you flip it for 6. Great. So I think this is a really strong card. And last but not least, in green, is Vorinclex. 3 green for a 6/6 trample reach. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for up to 2 forest cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, and shuffle, so it draws you 2 cards. And then you can pay 6 green to exile it and flip it over as a Saga. The Saga mills 10 cards and puts 2 creature cards from the mill cards onto the battlefield. Cool, great, fantastic. You distribute 7 +1/+1 counters on stuff. Yep, okay. This card's just busted. I'm not even going to bother reading the rest of it. They're all good. All the cards are just great. This one notably does not have any restrictions on when you can activate the ability. It just costs 8 mana, so you just do it whenever you want. You're probably never going to, because your opponent's going to have conceded by the time that you would have been able to do that. So, like, this card's just insane. Like, just drawing 2 cards is just really good, and yeah, I mean that's just everything. It's all I don't have anything else to say about it. It's just really good. Like, whatever. And that's it for me. So. See you next time.